My name is Harvey Milk. Milk. Harvey Milk, and I'm here to recruit you.
I don't think of the story of Harvey Milk as a gay story. I think of it as a story about a guy who made a difference in the world.
I want to recruit you for the fight to preserve your democracy.
He embraced everybody, and he was rooting for everybody.
I know I'm not what you expected, but I left my high heels at home.
Harvey really understood the theater of politics.
He didn't just get his foot in the door, he kicked the door open.
Up there, put down the note cards. You gotta talk into that bullhorn.
Everybody gets their patron saint. Well, he's the gay patron saint.
The city's first gay supervisor will come out and play peacemaker.
The mission he had was, in a lot of ways, similar to a lot of groups that are discriminated against. And so he is one of the brave ones that kind of just stood up and pointed out, it's not right, and I'm gonna be who I'm gonna be, and I'm not gonna hide.
We're not gonna let the John Briggses or the Anita Bryants legislate bigotry in this state.
There's not a lot of difference, given the time, between, you know, somebody like Jesus or Gandhi or Martin Luther King. And, you know, Harvey's just another one who was willing to put himself in harm's way for the betterment of people's moment on this earth.
You get the first bullet the minute you stand at the microphone. Publicity's working.
Harvey Milk showed everyone that whoever you want to be, you fight for that and create that perfect world.
We can change Phoenix, but we have to start with our street.
Those kind of films have to be out, have to be in theaters. People has to go and see those stories to get inspired and go out and start to become who they want to be.
The first time I heard of Harvey Milk, I was coming up here to San Francisco to do theater, and I was closeted. I mean, it would be years, many, many years before I would come out, but I heard it, and it helped. Probably the next thing I saw was the documentary. One speech in it, and he says, somewhere out there's a kid from San Antonio, Texas, which is where I'm from, who's going to hear that a gay man was elected to public office, and it's going to give him hope. And I just remember losing it. You know, I just broke down crying because, you know, I was very much that kid. That's probably the moment that I thought, we got to get this story back out there.
We have got to give them hope!
One of the great joys of this project has been getting to know the actual Cleve Jones, played by Emile Hirsch in our movie.
What's your name?
Cleve Jones.
Cleve Jones. You're adorable.
Harvey met him when he was a young kid, and he went on to be a huge leader in the gay rights movement and created the AIDS quilt, etc. But he's a real godfather for this project.
Tomorrow morning, the gay citizens of Wichita will also awaken. The 5 too have lost their civil rights.
Cleve Jones got to know Gus Van Sant many, many, many years ago when Gus was trying to do a movie about Harvey Milk that ended up not getting made. And then Lance Black, our screenwriter, got to know Cleve Jones.
Then he told me that he was working on this screenplay, and I used to tease him and say, well, you know, when you're ready, I've got a director for you, but I didn't tell him who I knew. And he would always say things like, oh, well, you know, I'm going to have a friend of mine direct it, or maybe I'll direct it myself. And finally, I had to tell him that my director was bigger than his director.
Because we have so many whip pens, you might want to go like...
To have a director with such a beautiful, important body of work, who's openly gay, who has made so many beautiful films and has gotten so many extraordinary performances, because at the core, this is the Harvey Milk story, and the film is going to lift and soar on Sean Penn's performance as Harvey. Gus seemed to be the exact person you want to direct the movie.
You're not like most homosexuals, are you, Harvey?
Do you know a lot of homosexuals, Dan?
You never know what's going to happen when you show up for work. Working with Gus. The first day, he gave us all newspapers from that week in 1973. He's like, all right, just read up. So we all read for about 20 minutes. And then he's like, all right, now everyone in their character, just bullshit, be your character and do your thing. And so he sat on the windowsill and watched us for 30 minutes, just talking like it was 1973.
Opera's so passé.
You're not understanding the spectacle of it, the bigger-than-life emotions.
The bigger-than-life emotions?
I'd never had a director do anything like that.
What Gus is concerned about is organic, and I like that.
It's actually happening like right there, out that door. Like you can see him
because of the way we're facing. As you're talking, you can actually see it.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. All right.
That's something that I really appreciate. So whatever happens, he knows he can cut it together, whereas other directors I've worked with want you to do the same thing so they can cut it together perfectly. Gus feels that the emotionality and intuitiveness of what's happening is the most important.
It wouldn't be allowed for any other parade in San Francisco, and it should not be allowed for the gay parade.
A lot of the times, cameras will be shooting in two very different directions, and you don't really know what's being seen and what's not, so you're always on your toes. It's never an obvious close-up where you know you're not going to be in it, and there's something really wonderful about that.
Gus came up to me and he said, Steve, I think that because Scott is naked in the pool, it's unnerving for Rick. And I said, oh, okay, I got what you mean.
You can't just move here from across the country and run for that office.
But I am running for office. I'm on the ballot.
So then he came over to me after that take and he said, more. And I said, okay.
You can't demand acceptance overnight.
He really wants to do it right down to the little tiny details. They did a shot on Friday where Harvey was sitting at his desk in the board chambers and he put his feet up and there was a hole in his shoes. And Harvey always had holes in his shoes and holes in his pockets. He used to love to say this, I got my suits from a dead man. One of his friends' partners had died of cancer right before the campaign. Harvey and this man were the same size. And so John Reichman very graciously gave Harvey the suits from his former lover.
No, not cute. I hate the shoes. I hate the hair. You're not fooling anybody.
I'm not going to let those little Pacific Heights biddies write me off anymore because of a ponytail.
It feels like because Gus is making this movie, because we're making it in the place that we're making it, that something special is going on. Something of the spirit is being captured on film.
To be in the real city and on the actual City Hall steps is not only easier to act because you have a surrounding around you that is believable, but it adds to our sense of authenticity.
My proposition promises to protect our children from these gay perverts.
It gives you kind of a thrill to think I'm on the actual steps, but this actually took place. Those doors he actually walked through. It's a very weird feeling.
Shooting in City Hall was a huge thing for me, emotionally.
This is not something that you can take away from me.
You made a decision. There's nothing more I can do about it.
You know, you made the decision.
Walking down the same hallway that Dan White walked down from Mayor Moscone's office over to the supervisor's chambers and offices. All that's fairly disturbing, you know, eerie. That was on more of a morbid side, very affecting. I think the other side of it is being in the Castro. I'm living above the Castro, and I look down, and I know that they helped redo the Castro Theater. I know people are really happy that this story is being done in San Francisco.
Thank you, San Francisco!
We did an awful lot of the shooting for our movie in the actual space where Harvey Milk had his camera shop. It's now a gift store. And what we did was we built fake walls about 3 inches in from the old walls, but it looks exactly the way that Harvey Milk's actual camera shop looked. And so for the people who knew Harvey Milk really well, they would come by as we were shooting, and they would have these incredibly emotional reactions because they were being taken back 30 years.
Gonna win this time, Milk?
We had a couple of marches where we needed a lot of extras and we wanted people to come volunteer, not get paid, and help recreate. The Candlelight March, particularly, having 2,000 San Franciscans come from 11 p.m. till 2 in the morning, all with their own candles, and to recreate that march.
Thank you very much. Very grateful. Thank you, thank you.
A lot of them remember when all this happened. They were there. They were at these marches. If we went and shot it, you know, somewhere else, we wouldn't have those extras coming saying, oh, we did this. This is what we did. You know, and I said this, and I told that guy this.
Gus has a tradition of using real prominent figures in his movies, like William Burroughs and Drugstore Cowboy. And so he's taken a lot of these people that were there at the time and put them in the film, either playing themselves.
Teamster leader Alan Baird walked right into the shop.
Or another character, but it just adds another layer of reality and, I guess, heart, you know, just because of how meaningful it is to these people that are playing in the story of their lives.
People like Cleve Jones, who went on to invent the AIDS quilt, and Danny Nicoletta, who worked in Harvey's camera shop.
You know, memories change and fade over 30 years, and it's good to have different perspectives, and some people don't remember everything the same way, and that makes it kind of fun, because there isn't just one source for this movie. There isn't just one place that we go to get the information of how it happened.
For the actors to be able to meet the character they're playing and ask them questions and talk to them about, well, what was this really like, and what really happened here, has, you know, that's a gift that is just so extraordinary to them.
Gentlemen, Anne Cronenberg.
Anne and I talked a lot about just having to come into a group that's already so settled and how tough that was. Is there a place for us in all this, or are you all scared of girls? How she had come in like, I don't know what I'm doing, and having to sort of fake it for the first little while, and then actually figuring it out and becoming incredibly organized and a great leader in the midst of a lot of crazy personalities.
I was telling Harvey we needed some tough dykes around here, so.
Well, he got one. And it was kind of helpful because there were a couple of weeks that I wasn't working at the very beginning. So I did, in fact, come into this group of people who had no idea what to expect from, in our group at least, the only girl.
I'm Harvey Milk. It's an honor to meet you, Miss Briggs.
Yeah, no, I'm aware. It's kind of mind-boggling. You know, we have those characters in the film, and then we have the real people right there. It's bizarre. And it makes it all the more poignant that we don't have George Moscone, and we don't have Harvey Milk.
What's your name? I'm Scott.
Researching Scott was kind of difficult because there wasn't a ton of documentation on him. Later, when we were in San Francisco and I was doing pre-production, I met Epstein at a dinner, and I had heard that he'd done a lot of pre-interviews with people from that time. And so even though Scott was not interviewed in the final documentary, I thought, well, there's a possibility that he had interviewed him, and he had. So I finally got to see Scott on film around that time.
I think you need to find a new scene, some new friends.
I got a good sense of who he was. You know, he's Southern. He had a slight little twang. Sorry, I pissed in the pool. As far as Scott's role in this movie, he provides a lot of atmosphere of the time. It's a way to reveal Harvey Milk's private life.
You know, I remember when your birthdays were a lot less lavish, a little more intimate.
Michael Wong is probably the easiest person to study in this entire film, reason being he kept an insane political journal. It's like 370 pages. And it's all in first person, so there's no guesswork going on about what he thought about a certain incident. He tells you what he thought on page 75 or page 105 or whatever it is.
Harvey, what does Dan White do for you, really, politically?
And you throw Michael Wong in there, you realize that this is not actually a gay movement as much as maybe it's just a civil rights movement.
First order of business to come out of this office is the citywide gay rights ordinance, just like the one that Anita shot down in Dade County.
When I heard that Sean had agreed to do it, I started hooping and hollering and running around my living room like a madman. I liked Sean Penn before we began this project. I love Sean Penn now.
I was born of heterosexual parents, taught by heterosexual teachers.
Sean completely loses himself in his characters, and so when we're acting together, it's believable, you know, as a living flesh and blood character, and it's not Sean, it's Harvey.
If it were true that children mimic their teachers, we'd have a hell of a lot more nuns running around.
Just watching the physicality of him change. Like, you could watch Sean walk down the hall and then see Harvey walk down the hall the next moment. It's pretty incredible.
I love the idea of being in a film with Sean Penn where there's a lot of laughing and celebration and celebrating life, you know? Normally, the films I love about him is when they're dark and intense, and this film is dark, intense, it's everything, but his character, there's a lot of light coming out from him.
Harvey Milk was such a pioneer and such a heroic figure, but a lot of people don't know who he is today. That's one of the really cool things about this movie, is that people are going to discover this weird, hilarious, complicated, charismatic guy who made a difference in the world.
He's somebody who takes this country's principles and runs with them and ends up bettering all of our lives because of that. It's a classic American story. You know, so maybe I shouldn't say he's a gay saint, I say he's an American saint.